Patricia stole the steal, but she put it perfectly. This office should act as the conscience of this university when it is making resource allocation decisions, when it is developing policies and executing programs to ensure that the voice of traditionally underserved populations, and that's just not ethnic populations, but I'm talking about socioeconomic populations. I'm talking about our gay and lesbian brothers and sisters as well. They are, I like that song. You know, that's their role. And you know, during the audit, we thought and found that they served a vital service for the university because you need to have that voice at the table. And so, short answer, I oppose getting rid of that office. I truly do. But at the end of the day, this conversation is happening a little bit too late. And I just want to draw us back to a point I made earlier. I think Patricia touched on this as well. The university budget is being presented on Monday at the Budget Summit. Stakeholder groups will be provided with a 300-page binder and said, okay, this is what we came up with, approve it, and we move forward. That's not a budget process. That's not inclusion. That's not a process where these sort of concerns about this very important office can be raised by the stakeholder groups that they most impact. And these sort of debates are the end result of a closed and isolated and untransparent budgeting process. And that's why in my campaign I've outlined 3 specific actions that we can take as a graduate student community to make sure that we're not placed in these situations again, where at the last minute we're reviewing hundreds of pages of documents and forced to make what I think are false choices between the interests of our minority students and pitting that again against athletics and pitting that against this, that, and the other at the last minute. And what I've called on the university to do is, number 1, to include stakeholder groups, including students, staff, faculty, in the Regents Budget Committee. That is the committee that actually develops this budget over a 6-month period. And it was a recommendation that we made in the report on this university, and that's one that I think would be integral to moving us past these conflicts, to bringing people to the table and giving them a real seat to engage in discussions about these sort of issues when they're actually being decided upon, and when it's not a fait accompli at the last minute at the Budget Summit. Secondly, I think that we need an accessible and comprehensive financial summary of every operating unit on this university. I think, as Katie mentioned a while back, athletics is a perfect example, and this relates because right now the university doesn't report the full budgets for all of its operating units. And if we're going to engage in serious discussions about one office, we need to know the whole picture as a graduate student community. And lastly, you know, I'll just go back that all of these issues really stem down to being willing to ask the critical and difficult questions. It's how much are we going to subsidize athletics? How much are we going to subsidize the foundation? How much are we going to subsidize the Alumni Association? Where are we going to put our money? And as president, I want to ensure that this organization is brought in as early as possible and as full a partner as possible. Because that's the only way we're going to move away from this. Because if we don't, it'll be year after year after year, and it'll be one program pitted against another program continuously. And I think that we need to have a clear vision of how we stop this from happening, and just not focus on this one instance. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I could just say really quickly, if every candidate could wait for my go ahead, I have to adjust the timer every time you guys finish. I start the timer as soon as you guys begin speaking. I just want to make sure that I'm set. So I'll kind of wait my little green marker for the video signal.
So I think it's very important to look at the University of New Mexico and see its demographics. We receive Title V funding, and I think it's always important to consider that. And the objective of the university is clear, and we are a very diverse university. And our graduate and professional schools are no different, the law school being one of the most diverse law schools in the country, and it's known for that, and we take great pride in that, and it creates a really wonderful learning environment too. So we see those interactions and those examples clearly from the diversity benefits. As far as budget cuts and eliminating certain departments, I think it is something that is a big concern. And I think, as Jacob pointed out, it's important to be in the conversation as early as possible. when these types of situations are coming up. I think, just as he pointed out, I think these conversations are happening with us too late, and then we become too defensive, which is absolutely normal. And at that point, it's very hard to change the direction of what is already in the process. And I think that that is a big concern, and I think there needs to be more transparency, and I think that there needs to be more work involved with GPSA and with students in general at this university to help make decisions and help make directional decisions about where this university is going and how we're doing our funding. And with that point, it just reiterates on the kind of philosophy that I have with working with GPSA, and that is making sure that we work constructively and conducively with all organizations involved in this university, whether it's at the state legislature, whether it's one-on-one with the students, or whether it's with the administration. Always being at each other's throats is not a positive experience, and no one wants to sit down at a table when they're afraid that your organization is going to go and criticize them immediately. And while I think that that might be natural, I think that this is something that we can plan ahead to avoid. And that's my main point with that issue. But to just go back to the idea of this, of the department being cut, I think that these are concerns that are across the university, and